Hello and welcome to BQ Prime. A very good afternoon to all the viewers. I'm Hiral Dadia. One stock that is in focus that reported numbers today is Arvind. And clearly, if you see profits as well as on the margin front, the margins have seen a growth of almost 140 basis points. The numbers are in line with what the street was estimating. Let's welcome in our guest to understand what has worked and what has not worked. Punit Lalbhai, Vice Chairman and Executive Director, joins in. Punit, good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here.
Punit, always a pleasure to speak to you as well. Punit, clearly, in terms of the numbers, how has the quarter been according to you? Has it met your internal expectations?
Yes, it's on expectation, I would say. It's a very challenging demand environment. It has been for the last 4-5 quarters. And I think in that environment, this performance we are pleased with it. It has been the first quarter after 5 quarters that we've been able to show growth, which shows us that the markets had bottomed out in Q1. And as per our expectation, Q2 has been better than Q1, and we expect a better H2 compared to H1.
Right. So overall, if you see from the various verticals, which are the segments which you expect to be growth drivers going ahead, and where do you see challenges?
So I think the markets are going to remain challenging across the world because of a lot of bad news coming in, high inflation, geopolitical conflicts. So discretionary spending is going to be cautious. However, I think the other factor that is going to be in the favor of the fashion business is that most buyers have gone through their stockpiles of inventory and will resume buying in higher quantities than they have in the past. So that should see some growth in H2. The advanced materials division, despite all the negativity in the world, seems to be doing very well. We have again posted a very strong set of numbers with the highest ever top line and a good margin expansion there. And all three of our verticals of human protection, industrial, and composites are well poised and doing extremely well. So we are very pleased with that part of the business. I think the part of the business that will grow in the second half is garments. We've been working hard to restructure our garmenting, add capacities, debottleneck existing capacities. I think some of that work will pay dividends in H2.
Right. Let's talk about the various segments. You did mention about advanced materials, and that's something I want to pick up as well. Textiles, yes, there is a decline, by around 17%. And this is although fabric volumes have declined 5%, garment volumes by around 6%. AMD revenues, as you mentioned, have grown 13%. Volumes have seen a growth of 21%. What's going to be the strategy with the AMD business? Is that something which you as a company are looking to scale? And if so, what's the trajectory looking like?
So we would like to continue this 20+% growth, and there is ample headroom for that to happen. India is just about scratching the surface as far as adoption of these products go. So there's a lot of headroom to grow in India, and we are already taking a lot of market share in Western economies where there is already large markets for these product categories. So I think the 20% plus growth aspiration is one that we should be able to look at for the next 3 to 5 years.
Right. So, Puneet, clearly, right now it's still around 15 to 20% of the revenues. Say in the next 3 to 5 years, what percentage of revenues will this business then contribute?
So I think we have to also still understand that our fashion textiles will continue to grow. It will not grow as aggressively as the advanced materials. So it would be safe to say that advanced materials every year sequentially will have a higher percentage of the overall revenue. However, we have not pegged a specific percentage that we are trying to aim at. Rather, we are trying to see that both the fashion textiles, which has a large base, which is a large part of the overall business, continues to grow, and AMD grows at 20% plus. So I think that you should factor that into your your calculations to project the future. I think the fashion textiles business should grow in the high single digits.
Right. Now, in terms of the textile volumes as well, on a sequential basis, we have seen an improvement, and there has been price deflation, which has impacted the revenues, right? How is it looking like going ahead, firstly? And secondly, uh, from a domestic and exports perspective, how are you looking at it? Where do you see traction?
So I would say that one has to first understand the first half of last year was post COVID, quite a strong sort of demand scenario. Um, Plus, raw materials and selling prices were at their highest ever. It has significantly cooled off from those levels going forward. So, if you that quarter to quarter comparison across the years has all this noise built in. What we are happy to see is that Q1 in a challenging environment, Q2 in a challenging environment has been higher than Q1, and we believe that H2 should be higher than H1. So each successive quarter should see growth. Growth will predominantly come from the export market. Of course, festival buying has factored in somewhat in Q2 and will play a role in Q3 in the domestic part of the business as well. So a little bit of improvement in domestic, a little bit more level of improvement in exports. That's what we are expecting in H2.
I think that, overall, actually, it is music to the ears when you talk about, exports being the growth driver right now, because clearly, textiles have been a downer. Inventory was one of the major concerns I think majority of the Indian players have faced, right? So when you talk about exports as well, are you seeing inventory which has already been cleared by the customers, number one? And number two, have they already started building the order book for you, or is there still that cautiousness that does prevail?
So cautiousness is there, but there was extreme level of cautiousness when the inventory levels were high. So because the inventory levels have been worked through and they are at all-time lows with many of our customers, we believe that if they are cautious, the level of buying will be much higher than it has been in the past few quarters.
And overall, if you're seeing that if inventories are going down, your margins are also fairly improving because the fabric prices have continued to remain low, specifically from a textile business perspective. How is Europe and UK looking like? Because now I think everyone's waiting for the UK India FTA to happen. And textile companies are expected to be one of the key beneficiaries as well. So, how is that entire gambit expected to look like for you?
The macroeconomic situation in Europe is a little more challenging. However, the US has been extraordinarily resilient even through this high inflation period that they saw. So that market has sort of exceeded expectations, in my view, in terms of how the consumption has held up. And I think that's where a lot of the growth is also expected. Of course, should an FTA come through, then that will, of course, make a significant change in how much India sells to the UK. So that would be very positive news for the industry if it does happen. But Europe, I feel, will take some time to recover.
So, well, if you could help me understand now, if you have to look at FY24, clearly you're saying that the second half of the year is going to be stronger. On a consolidated basis for the full year, what is the trajectory looking like in terms of growth? And what's the next milestone that Arvind is looking at?
So I think we can say that H2 should see, a high H1. And the advanced materials division should continue this 20% plus trajectory year on year. So it looks, and that's also in line with what we've planned. So it's safe to say that we are on budget and going according to how we've been guiding the market and what our internal targets are as well.
Right. And any milestone over the next 3 to 5 years, Puneet, that you would want to achieve?
I'm sorry, I couldn't catch that.
Any key milestone that you have in mind as a company over the next 3 to 5 years? A number in mind that this is what the company wants to achieve.
So the company wants to be at an overall level. The first yardstick that we would like to achieve is a 20% return on capital employed, which we have a path to. We would like to see growth in garments, which has been historically a segment that has not done very well for us. So with a new management in place that's doing excellent work, we see that happening going forward. And that should make our entire textiles portfolio a lot safer, a lot more strategic to our buyers. And we would like to dial up innovation and sustainability across the company and continue this 20% growth in AMD. If we do all of those things, the future will be bright for the company, and we should be able to create good amount of shareholder value.
Absolutely, and that's what it seems like, because majority of the textile companies that we've spoken to as well, but majority of the business coming in from that space are now absolutely positive with the export business, and that could be aiding in the second half of the year as well. And you have the FTA that is signed, that will over well as well. So I think lots of triggers that are in place. It's just the timing of when they get fired is what everyone needs to wait and watch. Thank you, Punit, so much for joining us on the show. Congratulations once again, and good luck for the coming quarters. Speak to you soon again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure. So that's the management of Arvind. Clearly, if you see the stock is about 5.5% up, move a little more than that is what we're seeing with regards to where Arvind goes. And overall, if you see in terms of the business, the END business, as they indicated, is something which they are looking to grow as well. From here on, export markets are going to be the growth drivers, and that's the key thing that I think everyone wants to hear. 9.5% up move coming in with regards to where Arvind goes. That's all that we have on this session. Thanks for watching, and lots more lined up on the other side. Please stay tuned to Be Keep Right.